Yes, the JFK assassination. It is the subject of countless conspiracy theories. But what if I told you that a line of evidence exists that would suggest that JFK was actually assassinated because of his request to various intelligence agencies about all of the information that they possess concerning the UFO phenomenon? This is not a line of evidence that has been widely disseminated or discussed, except for a few high-level ufologists. And I think you will agree that the compelling nature of the evidence itself opens up a Pandora's box and may, in fact, help us solve 2 other assassinations. But I'll get to that. In order to understand this chain of events, it's important to cover briefly the UFO activity that had occurred before Kennedy was elected president. In Cape Girardeau, Missouri, April 12, 1941, during the Eisenhower administration, the U.S. Army retrieved a downed UFO and 2 alien bodies. This is the first known incident where aliens and craft were recovered. The craft, like that at Roswell, was a wedge-shaped craft. The alien bodies were identical and were considered by government scientists to be perfect clones. Altogether, 3 separate craft were downed in early July of 1947. This seems to have been caused by the type of radar that the military was using at the time, and that comes from insider testimony. The 3 craft occurred at Roswell and Corona and east of Alamogordo, New Mexico. According to Majestic 12 documents, the clandestine body delivered a neutronic propulsion device shortly after these downed craft were recovered to Dr. Robert Oppenheimer at his labs in Los Alamos. The culmination of this activity led to the founding of the CIA and a super-secret group assembled to assess the threat of the UFO phenomenon. This is known today as Majestic 12. In 1961, when Eisenhower delivered his farewell address to the American people, he warned them about the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower was a war hero and president, and he chose his last address to warn about elements within the national security state that were operating behind the scenes and beyond the oversight of the White House. When he met President-elect Kennedy, Eisenhower no doubt passed on this warning in great detail. The trail of evidence that Kennedy was extremely interested in UFOs is extensive, and a loadmaster on Air Force One at the time of Kennedy's presidency, named Bill Holden, stated publicly that during a conversation with Kennedy, the president had told him that he would like to tell the public about the alien situation, quote, but that his hands were tied. During the course of this investigation, I found a list of UFO events for 1961, and they were in chronological order. 2 of these listings are of extreme interest and certainly would have caught the utmost attention of Kennedy himself and probably the entire Kennedy family. February 5 through the 7th, 1961, in Maine. Many reports of strange lights flashing around in the sky. Some blinked and moved up and down. Portland Press Herald editorial on February the 9th stated, "Mysterious objects lit up like a ball of fire and going fast zoom over Portland. Unidentified shapes with green, yellow, and red lights hover over Brunswick, then dart away with unbelievable quickness. Strange things are happening. The military had us just about convinced that no such objects existed. The only trouble was that many people, good, reliable observers, continued to see these things." End quote. And that was reported in a very credible newspaper in 1961. This would indicate that this was a widely known event that was obviously in the mainstream media and definitely would have caught the attention of John F. Kennedy. February 7th of 1961 in Kennebunkport, Maine, the president of an advertising agency saw a bright red hemispherical UFO which hovered and then suddenly sped away. This East Coast UFO activity continued throughout the year of 1961 and even up until 1963. This gives us a glimpse into Kennedy's mindset on the subject that set him at odds with the super-secret Majestic 12 group that had by then superseded their mandate established by Truman and were now operating in the pure black. The only group in the world with the knowledge and access to both recovered alien craft as well as bodies, both living and deceased. This clandestine group at the highest echelons of the military-industrial complex began to exercise secrecy even from duly elected presidents. They coveted this power and possible exclusive access to back-engineered alien technologies. Then, in 1963, all hell broke loose. JFK made a deal through back channels with Russian leader Nikita Khrushchev to enter into a joint mission to the moon and other space exploration endeavors. This agreement was later confirmed by Khrushchev's son, Sergei. Kennedy believed the surest way to peace must be cooperation and coordination in space. JFK then directed the head of NASA, James Webb, to institute his policy of a joint space venture with Russia, as well as extensive information sharing. This is documented in National Security Memorandum 271. This order to NASA was then followed by a secret memo to the CIA, which has since been uncovered using the Freedom of Information Act. In this memo, JFK asked the CIA director for all information regarding UFOs as well as, I quote, high-threat cases. This indicates that Kennedy had been told of high-threat cases at some point prior to the memo being issued. The memo is dated November 12, 1963, a mere 10 days before his assassination. It is important to explore what was happening in the CIA during this period. From 1953 till 1961, Allen Dulles was the director of the CIA until he was fired by JFK. Dulles, however, was still the head of MJ-12, and this is where a very important piece of evidence comes into play. In 1953, Dulles hires Jesus James Angleton to head up the CIA's counterintelligence operations. When Angleton died, one of the agents under his control was assigned to burning all of Angleton's files on Majestic 12. At the last minute, this agent saved some of the documents, and one of those documents is a memo from Allen Dulles to the rest of the Majestic 12 group. In this communication, He expresses a grave concern about JFK requesting information about their activities, and that the president was going to share that information with the Russians in this new JFK-mandated space program. From Alan Dulles' point of view, this represented an enormous national security threat. To give the Russians access to our recovered alien technology and bodies was beyond what he and Majestic 12 were willing to bear. This evidence is known as the burned memo by upper echelon ufologists. And it states, from Director of Central Intelligence MJ1, in the context of the above, it has become necessary to review and evaluate duplication of field activities in light of the current situation. To eliminate this problem, I have drafted new directives for your review and consideration. Please evaluate each in its own merit with the goal of finding acceptable solutions in which all can agree on. You must know Lancer has made inquiries regarding our activities which we cannot allow. Please submit your views no later than October. Your action to this matter is critical to the continuance of this group. Lancer was the code name given to Kennedy. In recent years, an attorney named Douglas Caddy, who was assigned to the Watergate scandal, reported that the CIA agent and spy master E. Howard Hunt told him face-to-face that Kennedy was killed because he was going to give our most vital secret, quote, to the Soviets. When Caddy asked him what that secret was, Hunt looked him dead in the eye and said, "The alien presence." Caddy stated that this was the last time he ever saw Howard Hunt. This memo clearly states that they must not allow his inquiries. This is where things begin to get very dark and very interesting. I mentioned earlier some of the UFO activity listed in 1961, but let's take a deeper look at what else was happening. This was the year that the very first widely documented case of alien abduction occurred. Betty and Barney Hill in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and it was reported widely by the media. In 1961 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, sightings of the Mothman were being reported by citizens, and John Keel states in the Mothman prophecies that the amount of UFO activity occurring in this area at this time was enormous, with anomalous lights being reported on a nightly basis. And it is here in Point Pleasant that we have real evidence for the men in black. Mary Heyer, the woman who ran the town newspaper and who was chronicling the events going on, reported that there were men in black suits who showed up to the town. These men were seen in and around town, and two of these men were seen walking near the base of the bridge that would later collapse. One of the only known authentic photographs of a man in black was taken by Mary Heyer, and I show it here. The appearance of the men in black at this time makes a lot of sense considering what was going on in Majestic 12. I bring the men in black up because another memo was also saved and sent to investigators. This memo is believed by the best ufologists to be a direct order to assassinate Kennedy. The wording appears on page 7 of the document. These memos were leaked by whoever the agent was that was assigned with their disposal after Angleton died. It insinuates that it was Alan Dulles working with Angleton who ultimately ordered the assassination of JFK. Page 7 of the burned memo states the following. Designated MJ projects should be held in blank burnt page perform spike and house cleaning operations in major population centers in the event conventional methods are not satisfactory. Specialists from MK Ultra and Artichoke are hereby activated to conduct domestic. At the very bottom of the entire memo, we find the directive to assassinate Kennedy. When conditions become non-conducive for growth in our environment, and Washington cannot be influenced any further, the weather is lacking any precipitation. It should be wet. Notice the reference to Lancer/Kennedy and the last phrase, the weather should be wet. This is an intelligence term referencing what is known as wet work. Wet work is a code word for assassination. Keep that phrase in your mind as we progress, because you see, on the day of the assassination, a very mysterious man dressed entirely in a black suit and hat was seen strolling through the crowd holding an open umbrella on a warm, sunny day. This figure even caught the attention of official investigators into the assassination of JFK, but it can never be determined who he was. This is actual footage of the man in black. It also can be no coincidence that a schematic exists detailing an umbrella gun that was being used by intelligence services at the time. After the assassination, the umbrella man was seen strolling towards the school book depository where Lee Harvey Oswald sat in a state of panic, realizing he was the patsy. Wikipedia mentions a man who came forward 20 years later to claim he was the umbrella man, but then began to espouse a political statement against one of JFK's policies. It is now believed that this man was merely trying to gain attention so that he could get his political message out, and was probably not even present that day. Let's not forget that live aliens were recovered in the 1940s, and many investigators believe the Men in Black to be extraterrestrial in nature. Could it be that the origin of the Men in Black is one of alien hybrids supplied to Majestic 12 by the ETs? And what about Marilyn Monroe and Robert Kennedy? Did JFK share this secret with Marilyn at some point in their affair? And how about Robert? Would his brother keep this most vital secret from him? There are, after all, a lot of unanswered questions regarding both deaths. Alright guys, that's it for this investigative video. Thanks for joining me today, and be sure and show up and join me Thursday nights live for Paranormal Planet, 8 p.m. Central. You'll find a lot of the other episodes on this channel. Make sure you hit subscribe, like, and please share the channel around so other people become aware of the information we have. Thanks again, and I will see you soon.